So I'm Patrick. I want to talk about a plugin I've been playing around with. It's called Paperclip. Similar to Attachment Foo, it's a plugin for handling file uploads. Originally it was designed to work with Ruby on Rails. However, there's now a fork on GitHub that can work with MERB if you're using Data Mapper. It's a Data Mapper plugin. So let's kind of talk about why to use Paperclip. So interestingly, Paperclip treats files just like normal attributes. So it's a little bit different of an approach to take as compared to Attachment Foo, which kind of does the more magical way of treating files. So there's no extra database tables required. You just add migration and the file fields go on whatever model you're going to have your uploads attached to. This is a really nice thing. You only need image magic. So particularly if you're going to deploy your app, you just need to go and grab that package, which usually is just a single command. So with Attachment Foo, one of the challenges is that quite often you had to install image magic and R magic or image science or mini magic. It's kind of a lot of different things. So this really simplifies setting things up locally and also setting things up in production. There's built-in support for cropping out of the box, which is nice because if you ever try to do crop thumbnails, particularly with Attachment Foo, it's a bit hacky. And then it also has an overall smaller memory footprint than Attachment Foo. But that said, I'm not really knocking Attachment Foo. I think as a community, it's good for us to have choices and not just one plugin for attachments, one plugin for authentication. So I think it's healthy to have some competition here. So to get started with Paperclip, it's pretty easy. The first step you'd want to do is actually install Image Magic. I'm not really going to get into that, but it's pretty straightforward. You might already have it installed, actually. So once you've installed that, using Git, you can go grab the current version of the plugin, or there's a version mirror that's slightly less up to date you can grab it from. All right, so once you've got the plugin installed in your app, how are you actually going to handle files? I'm going to show you kind of a demo of that. Can you guys see that? Is that right? Okay, so the first thing you want to do here is you'd want to say, has attached files. You're going to give that file a name. You're going to set up some styles. So in my case here, I've got a really simple scaffolded app for movies. Right? So here's my index for movies. I can add a new movie. I can say add Finding Nemo. Actually, I'm going to disable this initially. All right, so let's go ahead and pretend that. Go ahead and upload a file here. Actually, let me backtrack. Stick to my script. Okay, so first thing you want to do is update your model, right? So you put in this little declaration here. So you're saying we've got this one attached file. We've got 3 different styles. You can see since this is an image, we have small, medium, and large. And essentially, the small thumbnails are 100 by 100, and it'll actually scale the file down so the maximum dimension, either vertical or horizontal, is 100 or smaller. Medium 300 by 300, large 600 by 600. So the next thing you want to do here is actually set up a migration to add the Paperclip fields to your model, in the table that stores your model. So it's pretty simple. You're just adding 3 fields here. We have a file name, the content type, and the file size. And then you can see here, you would put in the name of your attached file. That's sort of the convention. So if it wasn't poster, maybe it would be photo. So we've got that migration. I've actually already run it, but you just go ahead and run it. Pretty straightforward. So once we've run the migration, we'd want to go and update our forms to support multi-part attachments. By default, your scaffolded form will not have that. So we need that so it can actually handle the file upload. So I've done that on my new action. I've done that on my edit action. You can see this is what I'm adding here basically to the default scaffolded code. So once we've done that, we want to go ahead and actually add the file field for the attachment we're going to upload. So in this case, it's just form, file field, and then poster right there. Pretty straightforward. And then we've got the same thing on our edit form. Okay, so now that that's there, let me reload this form. I'll go ahead and add a movie. I'm going to add Finding Nemo. So here I've got already a little poster image from Finding Nemo. So we'll select that, and now let's go ahead and upload. Okay, so the movie was successfully created. It seems like the file upload worked, but we're not seeing anything, and that's because we need to update our show action to show us the image we uploaded. So let's go to the show action here. And the first thing we'll do, I'll just show you like the default. So this will actually link to the original file. So image tag, movie, poster, URL. Pretty straightforward. So let's go to the show and reload that. And so there we can see our original all set to go. But of course, in our movie model that we set up, we had these three different thumbnail sizes we set up. So let's go ahead and look at those too. So just like the first command that shows the original image, you basically just pass these extra parameters to specify a particular thumbnail that you want. So as you can see, we've got large, we've got medium, we've got small. So we're going to show these now. All right. Let's reload this page. Go down. Now we can see the large 600 by 600, the medium 300 by 300, and the small 100 by 100, which is pretty sweet. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and look at our model again. And one thing we want to do is do some validation on our uploads. You don't want to have people upload. You might want to require an image upload. You might want to require certain things about that image upload. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first validation you can use is validates attachment present. And we're going to give it a message of is missing. And let's go ahead and try to create another movie here. So we'll do a movie that's complete opposite end of the spectrum. Finding Nemo. Next, let's just forget to do an attachment. So there you see we've got an error there. So now we'll go ahead and actually find an image we want to upload. Yeah, this is just the default scaffolded controller model and that kind of stuff. So by default, this is how Rails will style your errors. So now we're actually going to upload this. Successfully uploaded, and just like the other image, it's treated key from the OS. which is pretty sweet. So the next thing we want to do is maybe go back and try to edit this image. And let's start checking whether or not an attachment is actually an image. That's probably pretty important. So all you do is validate its attachment content type, passing in the name of the attachment again, and then we just have kind of a hash here of 9 types, 4 images. I simplified that a little bit just so it made sense for this talk. You might want to add a couple more options there to support things like uploading progressive JPEGs through Internet Explorer if you need to. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and see if it works. So I'm going to go back to the Dark Knight here, and I'm going to try to upload a Word document. All right, so it said it's not one of the allowed file types. In fact, I missed an extra option here, so you can specify a message that you want to use if the content type is not valid. In my case, I just wrote must be a GIF, JPEG, or PNG. So we'll try that again. And we get update. We have a more specific error message. So next up, again with images, you might want to validate the size of the image. And particularly, you want to exclude really, really big images. So in this case, I actually was able to find a 12 megabyte version of this same poster. Let's try to upload that. And you can see it's like 6,000 by 4,000 pixels. So I'm going to do this, but it's going to be a little slow, given, I'm going to have to digest this whole thing first. So let's put update here. Still working. I have a powerful G4, so it's probably even slower than I downloaded. All right, so there we go. We got an error message that says the file needs to be between 1 and 150,000 bytes, also known as 150K. You probably could kind of make that a slightly smarter message, but it basically does the job in preventing users from uploading really big images that you don't want to deal with. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So those are some basic validations that you can do. So let's proceed to the next part of the demo. So let's go back to our index page on attachment. And I'm going to try to go ahead and display an image in the list view for all these movies. So every time I list a movie, I want to list the images. So let's go back to the index. So you see, okay, it's got these 2 thumbnails with the image. It's pretty nice. But sometimes with images, you'll have a situation where you may not require an image, right? It's just an option. So you need to kind of be prepared for images not existing. So let's get rid of our validation we set up that mandates that all movies have images. Let's leave that. And now I'm going to go ahead and create another movie. This one will not have any image associated with it. It will be Iron Man. Go ahead and create that. Okay, so we created Iron Man. You can see that it's trying to display some thumbnails here. They don't exist. So that's not really working out. And if we go back to the main index, we have a missing thumbnail here. We don't have an image. So, a nice thing to do in this case is have a default image. There's Paperclip covers. So we'll go ahead and use the default URL parameter, passing that into have attached file. Let's go ahead and reload this page. There we go. So now we have a default image for any movie that doesn't have a poster. But you can actually take that a step further. Not only does it let you specify a single default image, but you can actually specify a default image based on each of the styles you set up earlier for your attachments. So in this case, I'll get rid of the one I just set up. And instead, we use this. So we have default URL images, default underscore, and then we get this big guy here, style. So it's going to be this name here, large, medium, small, and then JPEG. So if I look back at my project, in the public images directory, you can see I've got the default thing automatically, but I've set up some other default images for different sizes. So that should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and reload the page again. Looking good. Let's look at the show page for Iron Man. So you can see actually we have the 3 different default sizes for uploads, which is going to be for our default image. Yeah, the original one actually. So in this case, there's not an original rights. It's not showing it. If you didn't want to show that, you could, rig up something in the view to get rid of that. So I'm just kind of keeping this demo pretty simple. All right, so we got a default image. Let's try to make a cropped thumbnail. If we haven't done that yet. So I'm going to go ahead and comment out the thing I did earlier. So we'll do the style a little bit differently. So we've got still the small, medium, and large styles. But I've added a 4th style here, which is the square style. It's 100 by 100, and the little number sign there indicates that that's going to be cropped. So it'll basically resize the largest dimension to 100 pixels, and then crop. So you wind up with a square 100 by 100 image. So let's do that, and let me go back to Nemo here, and we're going to re-upload Nemo. Okay, so we re-uploaded Nemo. We're going to do the same thing with document. Okay, so we've re-uploaded both of them. And now we're going to update the main index template to use the square style for doing posters. So we'll go to the index and just specify the square instead of small. And then we'll reload. So now we get really nice, crisp, consistent crop thumbnails. Just sort of the holy grail of image uploads. So another thing that Paperclip does that's pretty cool is you can do custom paths. If you've used other systems, one thing that can be annoying is the system has a certain way of storing files and accessing those files. And if you don't want that way, you wind up really hacking the crap out of whatever code you're using to make that happen. So Paperclip provides a path and a URL variable that allow you to customize where things are saved. So first off, let me show you where it's been saving images that we've uploaded so far. So it's saving them to the root of our Rails app, or the public root rather. And it's actually naming them, putting them in a folder called posters, which is the name of the name of the attachment. And then it's creating a folder with each movie record ID, and then inside of there you have the folder for all the different styles. And then lastly you have the name of the image in the original file extension. So that's not bad, but we might want to do something else. So let's do something else. So this one can be a bit tricky to do. You basically, I'm going to shrink this a little bit. we basically have the path and the URL. So I believe the path is where these files are actually stored as they're processed, and then the URL is the sort of public way that they're accessed externally. So this would be the actual link you would see in your image tag whenever you go to one of these things. So in this case, I basically changed the way this works a little bit. So like I said, it's a bit tricky. It's kind of experimenting with it. So we'll go with this and hope that it works. Let me try re-uploading the image here. I'll go ahead and re-upload file new. Okay, so that seemed to work. All the images are there. Let's look at the file structure again. And specifically, let's look at images. So you see there's now actually a directory here for posters. And it's kind of a simplified way of doing this. Just one less level of hierarchy. You see basically just the style name and then the original extension. So it's really clean. You might have a name for that. And if you look at the source, you can zoom that up, you can see exactly that path. So using these two variables, basically you have to make sure that whatever you have in the path is mirrored in the URL. It's a little bit confusing. But once you get it right, once they're the same thing, basically, then you can move some stuff around, which is pretty neat. Right, so the last thing I want to show off here is you can do some, these are basically just treated like normal attributes in the models. You can do other types of validation if you need to. So in this case, I made kind of my own validation. It checked if images were zipped or not. In this case, it's not really useful because you don't really want images to be zipped. But just to show you that, as an example, you can see I'm basically saying there's a poster with a file name, the content type matches zip, you're good to go. But if not, I want to error on that. So let's go ahead and try to re-upload the image here. All right, so tell me I've got to zip this upload before I can proceed. So that's the basic demo for Paperclip. Let me go back to my slides. So a couple things you can do for extra credit that are pretty cool. Paperclip does now support integration with Amazon S3. It uses the Write AWS gem to interface with Amazon stuff. That was developed by the company RightScale. It's done a lot of really crazy enterprise level stuff with Amazon Web Services. It's kind of a nice choice. I didn't really go into that, but it's really simple to set that up. You just sort of say file storage, S3, and you might need a configuration file, with your basic access keys for S3, and then you're good to go. Yeah. So like I said before, it's now working with MERB as a data mapper plugin. And the syntax is almost entirely the same. All the validations I showed you, all the styles, that all works exactly the same. You declare a couple other things in MERB and you're good to go. And then if you look around on GitHub, there are a lot of really nice forks from the main repo. One of them I was checking out actually does image captions. So, you could do your own version of I can have cheeseburger, titling images for people, which is pretty cool. There's some other nice stuff out there as well. So, yeah, that's Paperclip. Second. The back end is image magic. Right. Yeah. No, it doesn't use any magic. It's just image magic. I haven't done that, but I'm betting someone has. Right. So that's a pretty standard syntax that attachment tool uses as well. And basically, if I just did 100 by 100, it would take the image and just stretch it. Whatever the aspect ratio was, you'd wind up at exactly 100 by 100. But no. Well, to start with, so if you look at the small one over there, make that bigger. So if that was just 100 by 100, no matter what image I gave it, no matter what the aspect ratio, if it was a widescreen or really tall, it would squish the whole thing into a square that's perfect. But generally you don't want that because you get image distortion. So in this case, the sign there means that it's going to take the largest dimension of the image and scale that down to 100, right? So if I had an image that was a 2-to-1 ratio, right? Then it would scale down to 100 pixels by 50 pixels. So basically, it's going to preserve the aspect ratio, but the largest dimension will be 100 pixels, either horizontally or vertically, depending on what the image aspect ratio is. Yeah, it would sort of compress the largest dimension of the image to 100 pixels, and then the other dimension would be less than 100 pixels, or up to. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty easy. And then, so there are different additional declarations you could do if you need them. The ampersand? Oh, I'm not sure. I've only seen it really at the end, but maybe we can go a bit more. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, so it sounds like you could do more with them. A lot of these really derive from image magic, right? So it really just depends on how well supported they are by Paperclip or attachment. Any other questions?
That concludes this episode of the SD.RB podcast. See you next time.